Hi, everyone. Welcome to Café IBTTA. I'm Pat Jones. Our guest today is Diane Scaccetti. Before I introduce Diane, I want to say a few words about a dear friend and colleague who passed away over the weekend. Neil Gray was IBTTA's Director of Government Affairs from 1993 until 2020. He passed away, died suddenly over the weekend. It could have been a heart attack, we don't know. But in any case, I wanted to recognize and acknowledge Neil. He has left a big hole in IBTTA and our hearts, and I can tell you that everyone on the staff is hurting something awful. But we will get through this, and one of the things that's helping us get through it is the dozens and scores of letters and emails that we have received from you, messages of sympathy, and messages of care telling us about your relationship with Neil, the stories that you have. Even people who barely knew Neil Gray have a story to tell about his kindness, his gentleness, and how he took them under his wing. He was a magnificent human being who we will miss dearly. And we thank you, the members of IBTTA, and the members of the entire transportation community for writing us such beautiful notes. We want to let you know that we have a special web page on ibtta.org dedicated to Neil. You can find the address to write to Neil's family. We also want to let you know that we will be holding a virtual celebration of Neil's life. Not a memorial service per se. Neil's daughter, Chris, said Neil would want this to be a celebration. He would want it to be upbeat and happy. So it's likely to involve whiskey and a pirate theme. So please stay tuned to our website to learn more about the celebration of Neil Gray's life. Thank you. Well, as I said, our guest today is Diane Scaccetti. She is the Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Transportation. She's also the second vice president of IBTTA. A native New Jerseyan, Diane has 36 years in government service, with 30 of those years in transportation. Before assuming her current role, Diane was executive director and CEO at Florida's Turnpike enterprise, overseeing 460 centerline miles and a 5-year capital program of more than $6 billion based on revenues of over $1 billion. Before that, she spent 21 years working at the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, working her way up from contract administrator to the post of executive director, a position she held from 2008 to 2010. Diane, welcome to Café IBTTA. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks, Pat. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, this is Café IBTTA, the place where we drink coffee and talk about things that are interesting, relevant, uplifting, and fun. I want to have a big shout out to the platinum sponsors of IBTTA, the 23 companies that support us financially throughout the year and also provide thought leadership to assist the board of directors. And thanks to all of you members of IBTTA for standing and sticking with us through this very challenging year. We are taking your questions. I encourage you to use the chat function on your screen to ask questions at any time, and use the all panelists and attendees function. We want to get you engaged early. In the chat function, I would invite you to type one word or phrase that describes your feeling about New Jersey, the Garden State. One word or phrase that describes your feeling about New Jersey, the Garden State. And be nice. I'm from New Jersey, and so is Diane. Let's see, what do we have here? Cold.
Oh.
Interesting. Which exit?
No left turns.
Leave ASAP. What's that? Great surfing.
Oh,
Unappreciated. Great beaches. Awesome. Hey, I'm walking here. Atlantic City. Cape May Gardens. Can't pump my own gas.
No, you can't. And may never happen.
Exit 10. Okay. Point Pleasant.
Pork roll. Thank you. Not Taylor ham. It's pork roll. Very good. Most of the country can't even appreciate that one.
Jug handles.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Full service gas
gas stations. Amen.
All right.
So
Well, thank you for all those comments and emotions about New Jersey, and maybe we'll come back to them later in the program. Well, Diane, let's talk about one of your favorite books. It's a book by the name of Greater Than Yourself by leadership expert Steve Farber. In fact, Steve was a keynote speaker at IBTTA's annual meeting in San Diego in 2010. And the premise of his book is that the greatest leaders make others greater than themselves. Tell us about that concept of greater than yourself and what that means to you.
So Pat, I actually was acquainted with Steve Farber at the 2010 IBTTA meeting in San Diego, and really just was inspired by his presentation. And so for me, as you said, I'm in this business a long time. I think what I liked about the book was, as a leader and sometimes as just a human, we tend to hold on to that which we know best because it makes us experts and we believe it makes us valuable. And from time to time, if we give that away, we feel that we risk our importance in our industry, right? So we build these tremendous networks, we become subject matter experts in fields, and we feel if we share too much of that, then perhaps people won't need us. I equate it to raising your children, right? You feel like if you teach them too well, then they fly out on their own and they're not going to need you anymore. In both cases, neither is true. So in the case of business, when you can identify a person who really has the drive and the desire to succeed and to excel, I think it's important, especially for those of us in senior leadership positions, to be willing to turn over to them all that we know. And that is just not about tolling and the business of tolling, but it's our network, all the people that we have forged relationships with. Engage them, and don't be afraid as a human that they may outshine you. You want them to outshine you, because frankly, if they do, you're always going to be the one who gets the credit for pushing them forward. But I think also, and I think a lot about it now at 61, that I need people who are behind me to get ready to take these leadership roles. And if we're not willing to let go, then we're not going to develop the quality of person that we want to be able to excel and to succeed us and to keep this industry moving in the direction we intend it to move. So that book, it's a short book, it's a quick read, but it really talks about the journey you do internally to feeling confident enough in yourself to turn all of that over. So I certainly have my GTY projects from Florida, and I have some up here in New Jersey, young folks that really have shown me that they will respect and really take that network, take that knowledge, and keep applying it to the good.
Diane, related to GTY or greater than yourself, I've heard you say that it's okay to be a stagehand or it's okay to be a bench player, which sounds a little bit like servant leadership to me. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Well, it is a form of servant leadership, but I think, again, we all can't always be out front, and frankly, we always shouldn't be. So, and I know I've said this to Wanda, like, I don't really want to do presentations at IBTTA anymore. And it's not because I don't like to, but there are other young people that we need to push out there, right? That are knowledgeable. And we tend to focus on, we always want to hear from the leaders. Well, the best leaders teach the young people behind them to be able to do that and be in those roles, to go up and give presentations. And listen, whether it was Barbara Davis in Florida, who stood up at IBTTA and has done many good presentations on traffic planning, whether it's some of the young folks here in New Jersey. I have a young man I just talked about. His name is Richard Sun. He's a Harvard law grad, just going to take his bar, but he loves transportation. He's hungry to learn, and you can put him out front and realize that even if they make a mistake or they're nervous or, you got to give them that chance. And when we are the ones always taking it, then we don't give them that opportunity. So I often, even today at DOT, as much as I'm invited to speak, and it's wonderful. I mean, it's a privilege and it's humbling. I try to make those opportunities available to my staff to go instead of me or with me and let them be the ones to present. Again, we all have to face the fact that we are going to turn over at some point, and people need to be ready to step into all facets of what we do, both the operational, the public, the associations, everything that we're part of.
We're getting some good feedback on your book, Steve Farber's book. I agree 100% in promoting members of your team to shine and learn. That's from Steve Morello. And Alice Klemisevich says, thank you for the book recommendation. I just downloaded it from Amazon. So
Yeah, you'll enjoy
excellent. So Diane, let's talk a little bit about your portfolio. New Jersey, one of the most populous states. As commissioner of the DOT, you oversee New Jersey Transit, the South Jersey Transportation Authority, New Jersey Turnpike Authority, which also includes the Garden State Parkway, and of course, New Jersey DOT. Big portfolio, lots of moving parts. Tell us about how you lead and manage such a complex set of organizations.
So for me, my primary day-to-day role is commissioner of DOT. But I think because of my operational experience on the toll roads, you know, we have really brought together a group of folks that help do what I would call statewide transportation planning in a little bit different way. So we try to work more closely and not, let me start here. So when I took this job, I said to the governor, really, it's okay if I'm not chair of all these agencies. It'd be perfectly fine with me. But whether it's me or anybody else, the idea is when you chair all of those agencies, what you do is you create the common thread that creates the single transportation agenda, right? And so if you had competing chairs, you know, people will silo off, and while the Turnpike may not want to support something that Atlantic City Expressway is doing, or SJTA may be getting ready to do a project and they may not want to partner with the Turnpike, having a common chair allows you to bring them all together in a beneficial way. So for instance, as New Jersey goes forward to plan all electronic tolling, all three toll roads will work together on that plan. It won't be South Jersey will plan theirs, and then separately New Jersey Turnpike will plan its rollout. We'll do it together. But we get to do other things that we try to make common good. So pre-qualifying contractors or consultants. There shouldn't be three processes in New Jersey to get that done. There are 9 million of us, but we're a small state. So where we can create efficiencies amongst the transportation agencies, it makes sense to do that, to partner together and realize again, not unlike the whole greater than yourself concept, there is one agency that's better than the other. We all have different missions. When we work together, we then accomplish that much more. Our big project right now is developing the electrification project for state vehicles. So Turnpike Parkway, South Jersey DOT, we share maintenance facilities for the purposes of any number of things. We want to build a network of electrification charging stations so that we can start to convert our fleet over from fossil fuel to a hybrid and then ultimately to electric once the charging network is built all the way out. But we're doing it together so that we all can benefit from it.
Diane, speaking of those efficiencies and trying to eliminate silos seems to be in line with your communication approach. When you spoke to our Communication and Change Management Summit in Seattle last July, you said that you welcome communication professionals to be at any meeting that's going on in the department, whether it's toll operations or finance or engineering. Talk to us about the value and the importance of having communications professional in those meetings.
So as good as our work can be in execution, whether it's plowing snow, paving a road, building a bridge, when we communicate, when we do those projects, when we are ready to execute, the most important thing we do is communicate to all of our stakeholders. And so folks really need to feel that they understand what the project is, what we're going to do, how long it's going to take, what the steps are, what they can expect. And the way you do that is through your communications team. And if they're in on the ground floor, again, they develop a knowledge of the project that makes it very easy for them to develop social media messages or press releases or go to public information centers or public hearings. When you bring them in halfway through, they really never have the full picture. And so one thing that I've always tried to stress wherever I've had the opportunity to lead is you need to understand the entire business that you run, right? So it's fine to be an engineer and build a project, but you need to understand where the money comes from. It's fine to be a planner, but you need to understand what the impacts are operationally of what it is you might be thinking about. It's the same in communications. I need my communications folks to be transportation communication professionals. They need to understand the jargon. They need to understand the process. And when they do that, I think the best thing for them is to then really be able to communicate the message with authority and to be very confident when they're asked questions. They're not necessarily having to run back to somebody to get an answer. They have a knowledge base broad enough to provide those high-level answers. And they're an integral part of our team. We can't successfully execute a project without a strong communications plan. And we find when we do that, we've had some complex projects here in New Jersey. Talking earlier about the Port Authority tunnels. We're doing a big project on the 495 stretch going into the Lincoln Tunnel, coming off the Turnpike. Extraordinary coordination effort between the Turnpike and DOT and New Jersey Transit because of the number of buses that flow through to the Lincoln Tunnel. But the communication plan was absolutely key to making sure that the residents understood what was going to happen and commuters knew that they needed to either plan an alternate route or allow for additional time to make sure that they could get where they had to go. And honestly, and I'm going to knock on wood, it's 2 years and that project has really gone off phenomenally well given its really tight location.
Our guest today is Diane Scaccetti. She is the Commissioner of the State of New Jersey Department of Transportation, and we are taking your questions. Here's a question from Snehal Ambare. Diane, you've been a huge inspiration, my mentor and friend to me, but I want to know who inspires you?
My inspiration is really my mom and my dad. You know, I watched my dad work hard for a long time. My dad was high school educated, but he was a great business person, had vision, owned his own business for a long time. And I lost him in 1999. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, right? She worked at home. But I watched my mom do phenomenal things at our house. She built 2 additions on the house. You know, my dad was working 60 hours a week, so she would worry about picking out windows and working with the carpenters and the concrete guys. And you know, you watched what she did. She was an inventor. You know, she cooked. She loved to cook, and she developed a patent for aluminum foil and saran wrap. So because she didn't waste. She was a Depression baby, so she didn't ever want to throw anything away. So she created in her kitchen this prototype. She got it patented. You know, when they saw something, when they saw a challenge, they rose up to it. But I think the thing that I learned most from them was even on the toughest days, you always have to have compassion, right? You have to get up every morning. You have to have joy in your heart, no matter how bad the day is. And you approach each day really just grateful to be up on your 2 feet, to have good jobs and earn a good living. And they have, I wish my dad could see where I've been since 1999. I know he maybe is from afar, but just all they gave me, college education, a wonderful home. My parents and my grandfather, my mom's dad, were my inspiration. That's who my son is named after. Truly inspired me. I have to believe that my grandfather, had he been college educated, would have been an engineer, probably an electrical engineer, but an engineer nonetheless.
Keep your questions coming for Diane Scaccetti while we're waiting for more to come in. Let's return to the communications theme. You've had some virtual public meetings recently in the wake of the pandemic. We recently did a Zoom webinar on hosting public meetings virtually, and you've had the experience of doing some public hearings virtually with the South Jersey Transportation Authority and the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. What are some lessons learned from those virtual meetings? What did you do well? Where have you learned to do things a little bit differently in the future?
So we actually did our toll increase hearings via virtual meetings. And I think the one lesson that we learned very clearly is that you have to have a lot of patience, because it's such a change in the public domain to do what we're doing today. I mean, if this were normal times, we would be getting ready to head to Austin, and we would be doing these in-person discussions as opposed to via Zoom. People would get on for the virtual meetings and say, well, this is ridiculous. I need to give public comment, and I can't give public comment. And then they would go on and give their public comment. So we would laugh, because it was such an adjustment for people to understand that even though they couldn't see us, we could hear them and we could record their public comment. I think the other lesson we learned is far more people participate, right? So it's a lot easier to dial into this meeting than if you have to go to a public meeting, is, have your dinner, the meeting starts at 7, you may not get home till 10, you got to get up, here you're at home. You're still able to participate, still able to listen, put your kids to bed, wash your dishes. You can be doing 100 things and still participate in a public meeting. And so to me, and the numbers bear it out when you look at the Turnpike website, that we had more people participate. We posted it online. We had more people go back and re-watch the video. We had an extended comment period. So honestly, I think we got more public participation through the virtual meeting than we ever do in just an in-person hearing. So I think we've learned a lot. What would I do differently? I think we didn't have all the ability to do the Zoom technology. We weren't into Microsoft Teams. I think seeing people, even though we were on a screen, is still better than not seeing anybody and just talking to that empty space, right? Yeah. So I think that would be the one thing we would do a little different. Even though we tape them and we post them, like the interaction, Pat, you and I are having now, even though I know you're miles and miles away from me, still feels more real than just a phone call.
Right. I think the expansion in participation that virtual meetings allows is a huge thing. And just using IBTTA as an example, I can't wait to return to in-person meetings and put my arms around people. Mm-hmm. However, this year we've conducted 35 plus webinars and Zoom meetups, and we've had more than 6,000 participants. And many of these people are people we've never seen before, people who never would have attended an IBTTA meeting. And we've had 3 times as many participants virtually this year as we had in all of last year in person. Mm-hmm. So the virtual is just a really huge thing.
It is.
There's a question from Randy Cole. How much did your time in Florida help you prepare for your new role in New Jersey? I've always believed broad experience provides great perspective.
Well, Randy is correct. Broad experience does. And so for me, 21 years at the New Jersey Turnpike, I was all things toll roads, and that was my job. But when I went to Florida, I was a toll road, but I was part and parcel of Florida Department of Transportation. And really, being the 8th district, you learn that you have 7 other peers that may rely on you from time to time to coordinate projects, to help with funding, within the confines of certain rules and constraints that you work through with. And I also got to see at a much higher level the DOT process and how FHWA interacts with the department. So I kind of look at my career as having this very interesting progression of 100% toll road, hybrid toll road DOT, and I'll end my public service 100% DOT with that little piece that I still get to do on the toll road side. So really been very blessed in my career to have the expanse of really understanding how these public agencies stand up on their own, but also then interact and make the system better. And I think that's what we're seeing in New Jersey. I'm seeing one question about projects up at 15X. which is the Secaucus Interchange Project. And that's a good example of how you make the system better. That's a very, very difficult part of the turnpike, a lot of traffic. Any day when there's a Giants game or a big concert, it's just, I hate to say it's a nightmare, but it is, it's 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound bag. So there is a project at 15X because there's a major train station. We launched the Innovation Challenge at New Jersey Transit, and our goal is to provide a new means of commuting from the train station over to the new American Dream Experience Mall and the stadium. So if Wanda wants to come up from Washington and watch a football game or go to a concert, she can take the train, get off in Secaucus, get on a people mover. What it will actually be is still under procurement and still under concept by many, many strong and talented firms. But get off that train and get on another public mode of transportation that efficiently takes you either to the shopping mall or to the train station. So, alleviating some of the congestion on the turnpike, making it better for people who have no interest in going to either of those places, and giving our customers, both on the transit side and the surface side, a better experience. So yes, we continue to look at those things, and that's the beauty of this job for me, is being able to really coordinate those kinds of big mega projects that have some vision with great experts at all the agencies.
Diane, here's a question from Amit Thomas. What do you see as the next big trend in tolling / alternative sources of roadway funding? Will it be express lanes or VMT pricing or something else?
Well, I think tolling is going to be in and of itself a really major focus of funding. So I had the privilege of going before the House Ways and Means Committee back, I think that was at January we were there.
I think so.
Yeah, and so there's continued argument over how we fund from the federal side, how we fund DOTs. I don't think express lanes will ever have enough revenue to carry the day, and until we come to terms with having to add capacity in order to build an express lane, it probably isn't the most efficient way to raise revenue. And as I explained to my colleagues at FHWA, I don't want to spend $400 million to widen a road so I can have an express lane. It will take forever to get the return on that investment. Having said that, I do think studying some other ways, maybe it's VMT. New Jersey is very active right now in the mileage-based user fee study by the Eastern States Transportation Coalition, I-95 Corridor Coalition previously. And so we need to understand if these methods work. And the only way that we'll understand if they work is if we become active participants in the study. So we'll be launching a pilot where we're going to have about a couple hundred people, we hope, with devices in their vehicles over a 60-day period. So we can try to see how the data collected can then be billed out to folks and how the revenue would be allocated. I mean, it's very complex, it's years away. We see this happening with the Transportation Climate Initiative, with Reggie in the environmental side of the house. They're not easy plans to put together, but we must look at them because we will have to someday soon find another source of revenue other than just fuel tax and tolls. There's going to be, I think, a hybrid or a multitude of opportunities for that.
Diane, we've talked a lot about leadership today, and part of leadership is surrounding yourself with people who you can trust. I understand there's a special furry colleague in your office. Could you introduce us to Mason?
Yes, please. Hold on. This is Mason. Mason.
Tell us about Mason.
Mason is a rescue dog from a shelter. Mason was in a hoarder's house with 35 other dogs. And so Mason is, likes being the only dog in town right now. And so during the pandemic, I've been bringing him in. He is good therapy for everybody because, dogs are so pure of heart. They just, I can't say they love everybody, but they love most everybody. And he's been a little joy for us to have. He doesn't come in every day. But he has his own little bed here, and he has his own toys, and he particularly likes Chick-fil-A grilled chicken nuggets, He's all protein, no carbs, but he's been great company for me. And certainly I've seen some questions come through in the pandemic. He's been, a calming source for folks who come in. It distracts them from the stresses of the day, because Mason greets you with a little football toy and expects immediately that you are going to play catch with him. And he's a great guard dog. If anybody enters the suite that he's unfamiliar with, he runs out the door. He has to see who they are, check them out, and then determine if they can come in my office. So, but he can be easily bribed with food. I just want to point that out.
Diane, we're going to pause for just a moment while I make a couple of announcements. Next week, our guest on Café IBTTA is Mark Compton, the CEO of the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission and the first vice president of IBTTA. Tomorrow, our Leadership Academy Alumni Association all-class reunion social is going to happen. We're excited to see you there. If you're an alum and you didn't receive an invitation, please contact Wanda Klayman. Also, our virtual annual meeting is September 10th and September 14th through 16th. We got two parts, a Thursday and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We encourage you to register for the annual meeting, hear more from Diane and 10 of her colleagues during the Women in Tolling Trailblazers session on Thursday, September 10th at 1 p.m. Look, the annual meeting registration is free. You ought to be there and you ought to bring everybody on your staff. Please join us. You can learn about all of IBTTA events at ibtta.org/events. Diane, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Pat. Can I just, two things before we go?
Sure, yeah.
Your tribute to Neil was phenomenal. I just want to remind all of us, and it's a difficult time. I know the pandemic has changed the way we do things. But I think if Neil left us with any lesson, it's that life changes very suddenly and very unexpectedly. And so make sure you honor Neil by saying the good things you need to say to people, forgiving an awful lot of stuff that's nonsense that probably means nothing at the end of the day, and really remembering we get the day that we're in. And so make the most of every day. I think Neil was that kind of person. Didn't get his feathers ruffled too much, didn't see Neil really lose his temper. But I think he would want us to really value every day, because I'm pretty certain that Saturday was not the day Neil thought would be his last day. But he had a loving family and certainly loving friends. And I think that is what, if Neil leaves us with anything, it is the idea that we need to care for each other and say what we mean and be good and forgive at every opportunity. And number two, our friends in Louisiana and Texas are going to get whacked around a bit today with weather. Not necessarily all toll roads, maybe some toll roads, but at the end of the day, they're still our transportation colleagues. So please keep them in their thoughts today. You're in your thoughts today and tomorrow as they work through the remnants of Marco and certainly Laura coming through. But other than that, Pat, it has been an absolute pleasure to be with you, to serve IBTTA, to be here for as many years as I've had the privilege of serving IBTTA. It's been a joy, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you for that beautiful closing message. Thanks for being on the show. And to all IBTTA members and all viewers, thank you for being with us. Be safe, keep in touch, and we'll see you down the road. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.